that we are a business with the mission of improving the landscape for youth soccer players. But in the end of the day, from another perspective, someone who's kind of not really, doesn't look at soccer or football with as much passion and love as we do at FootyFive, maybe they'll say we're a tech company. And it's true. I mean, we're an application, we're a platform where youth footballers look to get to expert training content and take their game to the next level. I mean,
hey, Jovan. Jovan, sorry. We were just talking about names before we started. Jovan, welcome to the podcast.
No, thanks. Thanks for having me. I'm excited for this next hour.
Perfect. Jovan, can you introduce us to FootyFive?
Yeah, sure. So I think it's tough because there's always in my head FootyFive is a bunch of things. So I think the most simple way of putting it is it's a tool for young youth footballers to enhance their game, take themselves to the next level, and achieve their dreams in this sport.
Cool. So what does that mean? Is this a tool to form your own tournament?
Yeah.
Jump into an existing global tournament? Yeah. What does it look like?
Yeah. So I think the best way to start really would be to kind of where the idea started and where it was kind of thought of. So my background is soccer coach. Started coaching soccer 4 or 5 years ago, and in kind of along through the journey of coaching in Canada. There's a few problems and really developmental problems that I noticed in the sport, and together with my coaching mentor at the time, who's still, I guess, today, a really great friend, business partner, and also still coaching mentor. I learn a lot from him. His name is Alex Balta, the other co-founder of FootyFive. We got talking. Where it's like, I think compared to other leading nations in soccer, we lack training time, we lack guidance. And in the end of the day, quality soccer, coaching is very expensive in this country. So what we really thought to do was to enable at-home training and one-to-one training time with players that can be utilized and leveraged through technology. And what that means is FootyFive is essentially an application where players with a team or without a team can log in, create their profile, and create their schedule, create their own profile. Go through a bunch of different trainings that we've created through help of UEFA licensed coaches and professionals in the sport, soccer, both here in Canada and in Europe as well. And with that, players can obviously then take the initiative and train on their own or train under the guidance of their individual coach or their head coach, and sometimes their parent as well. So that's a little bit of what FootyFive does, and obviously we can get into the details later.
So let's talk about this because, a lot of times we get pure technology. Most of the times we actually get technology-based companies on the podcast, right? Everyone is trying to create a technology platform or some technology-based community where you're using technology to kind of bind people together or perform some kind of task together. Are you utilizing technology in this in the community you're building?
Yeah, I mean, that's really the key to our company. Really, in the end of the day, my vision and the vision of the entire company and is that we are a business with the mission of improving the landscape for youth soccer players. But in the end of the day, from another perspective, someone who's kind of not really, doesn't look at soccer or football with as much passion and love as we do at FootyFive, maybe they'll say we're a tech company, and it's true. I mean, we're an application, we're a platform where youth footballers look to get to expert training content and take their game to the next level. So we do definitely use technology, and I think that's something that we were lacking, let's say, in North America. That what is our competitive advantage? And I think in the end of the day, our competitive advantage as a country and as a society is that we do have access to technology and all of our kids really above the age, I would say, 8, 7 years old do have phones nowadays. So how can we allow, coaching and development to not just stop once you leave the field with your team? How can we really immerse the sport all around? And that's what kids want. Kids love soccer. Kids love to be, improving and and competing with each other. And another thing they love is to kind of be engaged with technology. That's something that's a part of their body, really, is phones, as it is for, potentially me and you as well. So that's kind of what we do, and it's like a long-winded answer to your question. But yeah, technology is the face of what we do.
Hey, welcome back, bud. We had a little bit of a mishap, so I had to jump out and jump back in. But going back to what we were talking about how people engage through your app, especially soccer. Can you talk about the market? Like, how big is the soccer market right now?
Yeah, well, I mean, in specific to Canada, there's over 600,000 registered youth players in Canada, both male and female. The age split is relatively balanced. In the States, there's about 4 million registered youth players. Again, on a split of pretty fair split, male to female, and we think there's a lot of players there that are at different levels in the sport. So maybe they're just playing at a house league level, very recreational level, or maybe a very high level. So really, what we look at our market is that the players in the middle range that really want to take the next level in the sport, potentially that are that have felt like they've outgrown the very recreational house league stage. Likewise, obviously from the higher levels, we as I said, from level 1 to 5. If you're at a 5, you're basically ready to play at the highest level. I mean, when funny kind of stories is when we're filming with these, professional players and creating the content, it's even, tricky for players that are playing, first team football in Europe. So that's just trying to put it into context of the variety and kind of the range of training content we have, from really the most early stages, making sure the sport is inclusive for everyone, to the high stages. So there's definitely a lot of soccer players in both Canada and the United States, and adding on that is with the World Cup coming here in 2026, both in the United States and Canada, and the popularity of the leagues, the MLS is growing to I think they're almost at 30 teams in the MLS, which is crazy. Kind of that's at the level of NBA and whatnot, in terms of teams amount. And likewise, in Canada with the CPL, there's 8 professional clubs in Canada and the Canadian Premier League. So that's great. That's something we didn't have 3 years ago. So all that's going to just improve the popularity of the sport here. So I think the market's there. We just need to make sure that we're doing the right work, and players will reap the benefits of FootyFive.
Yeah, so I mean, those are not big numbers. 6 million people in Canada who registered for soccer.
600,000.
600,000.
6 million.
And yeah, I mean, so you're talking about 600,000 for Canada, which is 32 million people, give or take, which is 10 times less than the United States. But the United States has 10 times more the population, but only 4 million. 4 times, a few times more in size of soccer. Why is it more popular in Canada?
I think it goes back. That's a great question. I think it goes back to kind of Canada's multicultural background. I mean, we have many people coming from all around the world, from European countries, from Middle East countries, from even Asia. Now the sport is very popular over there, and the makeup of Canada is very different than the States. I mean, another thing you could kind of point to is that in the States there's a lot of options as well. Like, I mean, they have everything. I mean, I think in Canada, if you want to play American football, you can play American football. If you want to play hockey, you can play those sports. But soccer is one of those sports that it's not very difficult to set up leagues and set up clubs. It's not something where you need to spend hundreds and potentially thousands of dollars on equipment. So it allows that to be that much more accessible and inclusive for players. I think that was also in the States. You look at maybe potentially in the South, soccer potentially the perspective is a little bit different than maybe northern areas, Midwest, etc. So I think there's a lot of that pointing in the direction. But I think the biggest thing is just the makeup of what is a Canadian person, and typically they have some connection with a European country or a Middle Eastern country, African country. That's football is everything for them.
Sorry.
No worries.
Yeah, so talking about that, like I love I love that answer because talk about it being a multicultural sport, being an accessible sport, and widely available. Soccer is one of those things that are really interesting to see as a history of like how it kind of developed. I remember looking into it, and it used to be a Aztec sport. Like the Aztecs used to play it as a sacrifice, the sacrificial thing, as it goes, like it was apparently the Aztec Empire grew so much and they have conquered so much that they had no one left to fight. So they turned to soccer as like a way to like appeal to the gods, and it was actually a death match. Like the two teams, whoever won would get sacrificed. Right, and it was a different form of soccer than it is now. It's much more smaller teams and more obstacles, but like that is what the Spanish came into. It took and culturally took back into Europe, and where it developed into the more modern day sport, and then got exported from there to the rest of the world, and became like this global thing that everyone can kind of do to kind of compete against each other and have like a sport instead of war, right?
Right. Yeah.
And I heard about one of the cool things about sport is that aspect of it, right? It's tamed warfare, right? You're competing against each other for dominance, but without the need to kill or take everything from each other, right? And it's a way for people to get that out. So the history of sport, I think, is really interesting in that sense. It's like how can we compete in a non-violent way and use that to build relations? But one of the hilarious things is in Latin America, how seriously they take it. Like countries have gone to war over soccer, like literally declared war. I think two nations did that back in the 70s. So what is it about the sport? I guess that elicits a reaction from you. Like, why are you so ingrained into the sport?
Yeah, I mean, you kind of hit the nail on the head, and you kind of brought up something that's much more deeper than anything we could talk about right now. Is that and then, a human makeup is the tendency to compete, the tendency to win, to lose, to be one step up on your opponent, whether that's a country, whether that's a region, whether that's a team or a club. It goes back to I think tame warfare is a great kind of word or approach to look at it, because at the end of the day, it is war. It's one versus one, tribe, let's say, or team versus another tribe, and you're competing to win. I mean, that's really the makeup of the sport, and what is then a coach? Is that a president, or is that a head of military in another perspective? So it's a great kind of parallel, and it's something that's ingrained in us, not just from a few years ago. It's kind of something that we through evolution have been used to, is that we compete with other people with the same like mind. We like to be in herds or in groups, and we like to compete and show that we're the best. Whether that is again a country, politics, or whether that's potentially an industry, banks, or whether that's schools, you name it, anything. There's competition. And something that obviously myself, and probably other 1, 2, 3 billion people in the world, there's soccer. Soccer is a way of competition, and it's a way of emotion that we can express it in different ways. So no, I mean, it's a great parallel, and I think in the end of the day, we're as humans kind of naturally ready to compete and to latch onto something. So the soccer is just a one way of exposing that, like basketball is, like any other sport is, like anything really is, right? Business as well.
Yeah. When did you get started in soccer? Was it a young age?
Yeah. You know what? My kind of start in soccer, which is kind of, kind of my makeup, European parents, the only really logical thing was to kind of put in soccer, but I was always playing at a recreational level. I remember as a kid, not too interested, to be honest, in the sport until I remember clearly the 2010 World Cup, which was a huge World Cup because my team, that I've supported ever since, I guess, that time until now, the Serbian national team was in the World Cup, and ever since then, kind of watching them at that World Cup in 2010, and so I remember that World Cup was in South Africa. That's kind of when I fell in love with the sport and realized, Jesus, this is something that is not just about one game. Where it's about a whole country back, getting behind a team and kind of you feel like you're a part of the team because you're that nationality, let's say, and you're going for it. So then kind of enrolled in more competitive soccer, played all through kind of my youth, loved it. That's where I met a lot of my friends till this day. So that's kind of the power of the sport, to be honest with you. I mean, without soccer, without the team I played on, I wouldn't have, basically my friends and my inner circle. So, it just shows how much, the sport and the ball, the game can kind of, influence your life and in your crowd and how you are as a person, and evidently. So that's kind of my, obviously at that point, always knew kind of I wanted to get into the coaching side. And, lucky enough, met Alex Volta, who I kind of mentioned at the beginning of the podcast, who was my mentor and gave me opportunities that, the average young, ambitious kid wouldn't potentially get as easily. And I took it with, wasn't easy, that's for sure. I mean, it's like anything. I think, you have to kind of really take a deep breath and go for it. But, I'm far away from where I want to be. But, we're always improving. So soccer is something that, as a fan, as someone who's looking from a coach's perspective, as someone who always wants to play, sometimes it's tougher as you get older. Not physically really, more just, how can you round up 10 guys to play a game? It's not really always the easiest thing whenever, in our society, but it is what it is. Soccer is always there. It's always going to be there. And it's something that has definitely given me a lot.
Yeah, and growing up in Hamilton as well, right? It's a sports city. I believe you guys have a CFL team there, and everyone just like wears the colors, goes down to the games. I've driven through the town a few times on game day, and it's wild. Like it's like the city just comes to life around one team, one identity.
Yeah.
What's that like? Being a fan.
Yeah, I mean, to be honest with you,
Start being an athlete.
yeah, I mean, really, you look at Hamilton. Hamilton's a specific city. I look at it because obviously, Hamilton itself is one of the bigger cities in Canada. You'd say one of the ones that often isn't something that someone would think about. It's Steel Town. It's a town of working class. A town of really three areas. You have the central, you have the east end, which tends to be a little bit more of the kind of European background, and then you also have the West End, which is another kind of crowd as well. So, I mean, it's a city of multiple layers, and if we're looking at it from a sports perspective, I mean, yeah, there's definitely a lot of teams. There's now basketball teams. I think they're called the Hamilton Badgers, playing out of First Ontario Centre there. The Hamilton Bulldogs hockey, Tiger Cats, as you mentioned, that they have an amazing tradition, amazing crowd. They're definitely for the example for all the other teams. And now, obviously, something that I kind of relate to more is Forge. Forge is the founding team of the Canadian Premier League and the two-time champion. The league's only been around for 2 years, so they've won it both times. And also doing really good things on a continental scale as well. So, yeah, just kind of looking at it from that perspective, it's something very special. I remember a few years ago sitting in Tim Hortons Field, where Forge played, where also the Tiger Cats play, and they were playing a continental match against a team from what have been maybe Antigua and Bermuda or something like that. And to sit in the crowd and watch them win, which they did, was a very, very surreal feeling, because you always look at it and you say, okay, I've been to matches in Europe, I've been to those big matches, but this is now a team that is a new team. That's unique enough, but it's also a team where you're born in the city. That's your team, whether you like it or not. I mean, there has to be something. I mean, I know the average Canadian fan or American fan, they might support a team that's potentially 5,000 kilometers away from them, which okay, great, but at the same time, you're born in that city. I mean, that's your club, kind of whether you want it or not. That's the way things kind of work, at least in Europe, I think. So from that perspective, it was a crazy feeling, and it's a feeling that inspires you. Now, from a coach's perspective, what if one day I'm able now to coach this club? This is that I've been so all those opportunities that sport can give and soccer now can give. I mean, the fact that soccer is still in the professional level young. So, I mean, yeah, Hamilton does a great job. I think Hamilton's always kind of maybe that little brother in terms of when you look at Toronto, Mississauga, that's another beast of a city. Hamilton's there. A lot of people that are not from Hamilton all have these Hamilton a little bit rough around the edges. And let's be honest. I mean, from downtown core, yeah, it is. I mean, walking through there, it's not the most pleasant sight. I mean, you won't it's not like walking through, let's say, Toronto or High Park, let's say. I mean, it's not like that. You're not going to get that amazing feeling, but it is Hamilton. It's yours. So, I mean, in the end of the day, that's the way I look at it. What's yours is yours. You got to love it or hate it. It is what it is. So no, I mean, Hamilton's a great city. You don't really appreciate where you're from as much until you're out of it. I went to school in Kingston, Ontario, which is another cool city. But I realized then what your hometown means to you. And great city, for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. Jovan, I mean, Jovan, I'm going to have trouble with you.
You're killing it, man. You're doing a great job. I think, you're in the higher percentile in terms of pronunciation. So.
Thank you. Yeah, this has been great. Technically, we don't get a lot of like athletic-minded companies coming here. Most of them are technology-oriented, fintech products.
Yeah.
Trying to tackle on software-based problem sets. I mean, we need more people solving these kind of problems. Like, how do we connect people over athletic activity, especially now that we've been under a year and a half of lockdown and everyone's been kind of like stuck at home. It's important to get out and meet people and do things physically. And sport is definitely one of those areas to do that. So looking forward to more of you and what you do with FootyFive.
Yeah, no, I mean, I appreciate it. Again, I mean, it's you kind of take you get you take what you get in the end of the day. And I mean, for me, it goes really back towards kind of looking in within and what is my point, what can I contribute, and what do I know best. And it is something I mean, there's brilliant people, brilliant minds where I went to school. I mean, very very smart people that I learn a lot from and I admire as well, and that are creating the best. That's why in Canada and the United States and in a lot of other countries as well, they have these new solutions, these new startups, these new companies that are doing amazing things. FinTech, as you said, technology to leverage a bunch of industries. But at the end of the day, I know I'm not that kind of guy. I know I'm not going to do an amazing job with that. What I can do is increase the opportunities for youth players in soccer. That's what we do at FootyFive, and that's what at the end of the day, hopefully, in 50 years' time, I can look back on it and say, okay, maybe I made maybe a little bit of an impact, and that's what I love to do. That's kind of, in the end of the day, what keeps you going, what keeps you be like, oh, this makes sense, because I think in sports, especially when you're not on TV every week, it's not the most simple kind of lifestyle. Let's say it's not the most. You're not taking home that much. Let's put it that way. So at the end of the day, it's about kind of what you're doing and the impact you're making for these players, and hoping at the end of the day, giving back, because soccer, as I said, gave me my friends, gave me environment, and gave me kind of who I am now, really. So without sounding too kind of, because I'm not a guy to kind of go into all these emotional kind of looking perspectives, but it's true. I mean, at the end of the day, that's why I'm in soccer. I love you have a great session with players. You have a good communication with your players, and you see that they're benefiting from something you're doing or something you've put into place. There's nothing better than that. That's for sure.
Perfect. Love that. Yeah. So thank you again so much for all your time and coming on and talking about FootyFive. Everyone who tuned in, thank you again. Stick around. We're gonna do a quick debrief, but. Thank you.
No,
again,
I appreciate it.
Thanks
and if anyone's listening, I mean, feel free to, check us out on footyfive.ca or Instagram at FootyFive. Also TikTok as well, FootyFive_CA. So we'll reach out as well. I mean, I'm always looking forward to, answering any questions or or figuring out how we can be better, because we're not a finished product. We're always going to be doing better things, and we're excited to start. So again, thanks for having me on. It's been a good. It's flown by, to be honest with you. But hopefully everyone enjoyed it. I know I did. So at least one person's good to go. Anyways, ciao guys.
Perfect.